Um, I know her as our beloved 2023 Bridges Fellow. She was part of the Center for Shared Society's inaugural cohort of Civic Leader Fellows. And so, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Debbie to greet everyone.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the esteemed panelists that are on. Thank you so much for your leadership around this very special and sensitive topic. And I know Pastor Gilman Rose and Rabbi Bob Kaplan work tirelessly for the faith-based community. So I want to thank you as a member of the faith-based community because we feel your efforts and we know that we are not alone in the fight against hate crimes. Again, my name is Debbie Lewis. I'm from the executive chamber of Governor Kathy Hochul, and I bring greetings to you all from the governor. And I know you all are going to get into an in-depth training on the securities grants. But before you all do that, I just want to share some information with you all. This grant program was established 6 years ago in 2017. And to date, there has been about 2,700 projects with $134.8 million awarded. And so we know that there is a continued effort to support hate crimes and support houses of worship, community centers, camps, daycare centers, all of these special places and cultural institutions against hate crimes. These are our most vulnerable populations, and so we have to continue to support one another with the missions and beliefs that we all have. And so as you get into this training, my one message that I'll leave for you is each one teach one, and lift one up and support another so that you know how to continue to build the community and safety around the communities that are most vulnerable, and extending the information about this program to others that wouldn't have known to log on to the Zoom or be a part of this esteemed group. And so as you continue on, my best wishes for you all. I know that there's an open RFP process right now, and I do hope that you all are able to navigate the RFP process and understand how to, be awarded and continue to fight through to make sure you keep our communities safe. And that is all. Thank you again for having me. And please let me know if I can be helpful in any other way.
Thank you, Debbie. And please give our deep thanks to the governor for her vision and her support of the work that needs to be done. We wish that the funding could go elsewhere, but unfortunately, in the world that we're living in today, this kind of funding is absolutely necessary to ensure that, again, all those who enter into a house of worship are there for only one thing: prayer and connection to our common creator. Not to have fear at all. Just like to say, as closing remarks, we will hear from Richard Priam, who is the CEO of CSS. I just don't want anyone to forget that they should stick around. However, few people have earned the title being the founding chair and senior advisor of CSI. David Pollock, who is about to present to us, is the true guru, and we are honored to be sitting at his feet and learning from him the processes that we need to know. It is with great honor. He was a colleague at JCRC for decades, and I'm honored to be his colleague now in his new position as the founding chair and senior advisor to CSI, but more than happy to sit here and learn from him, his wealth of knowledge, his wealth of understanding, and his expertise, true expertise in teaching and caring for others. And without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to David Pollock.
Thank you so much, Bob. Good morning, everyone. So today we're talking, as Debbie alluded to, about the New York State Securing Communities Against Hate Crimes grant. And there is coming up at some point a federal nonprofit security grant program. So at-risk nonprofits will have the opportunity to get $200,000 apiece in the state program and $150,000 probably times 3 in the depending on circumstances in the federal program. So let me take it from there. Bob alluded to the Community Security Initiative. We were founded in 2019 after Pittsburgh and Poway and Muncie and Jersey City to really address the heightened security challenges of the Jewish community. And we currently have 18 full-time people now doing what I tried to do ineffectively as one. This is a incredible program. Just in terms of keeping the lawyers happy, this is the best information that we have. It's based on the information that the state government has put out. Also, it's guessing at what the federal government is going to put out. So it's very, very important for you to continue to check back with us to see what the latest and greatest information is. Okay. Now this presentation, before we get, as Cynthia gets all the questions about, is this presentation going to be available online? If you go to csi.org/security landing, it's there. And you can just click on the presentation at the top, and all of this information is there. I have what's available. It's confusing, and there's a lot of different options. So let me try to deconfuse some of the information. Okay. As I said, as Debbie alluded to, the New York Securing Communities Against Hate Crimes grant is available. The application is available now. The deadline is May 17th. That may sound like a long time from now, but it isn't. We're urging everyone very strongly to get started now. There are lots and lots of hoops to jump through, and I think that you have to get you have to leave time for unsuccessful hoop jumping in the state. What the governor has done is put $35 million in the 2024 budget for this program, and there was already from the 2023 program a package of $25 million. So altogether, the governor anticipates there will be $60 million, and the maximum award per organization is $200,000. Now, the federal program, that's not released yet. Why? Because the federal government does not have a budget. Remember, Congress is on vacation right now. They're going to come back. There's a possibility that the government can shut down. Government has to get, Congress has to get its act together, which has been a challenge lately. So what we anticipate, and this is a pure guesstimate, that somewhere in April or May, this grant, the federal grant, will become available, and the deadline may be just a couple of days after the release. Do not, do not assume that you're going to get any time, because everything is dependent on how quickly Congress acts. And I don't think it's a big, a radical comment to say that Congress does not act quickly these days. The amount allocated is unknown. We'll get to that in a moment. And the maximum award here is $150,000 per site. This is based on last year. That means that if you're, for example, if you have 2 buildings, you get $150,000 for each building. Or you have a church a social hall and a separate building that's a social hall, and a school, that's 3 sites. So some schools have multiple sites. So you get up to 3 sites here. Now, what are the requirements? The requirements are basically the same for both grants. Number 1, you must be tax exempt. Now, don't be confused. If you are incorporated as a nonprofit organization, a religious corporation in New York, that means that you are automatically exempt from tax under IRS 3. You do not have to obtain a recognition letter. Anyone else that's not a religious corporation should have a recognition letter from the IRS. You must be a nonprofit 501c3. So the IRS has all kinds of 501cs. This only is for the 3s, which are all religious, social service, and social service organizations, and educational, excuse me. You must be at risk of a hate crime. We'll get into that a little bit more later. You must be registered with the Attorney General and the Charities Bureau. That means that you have, again, religious corporations, it's pretty simple. You put in the name of your organization, your address, and a contact person, and then you tell them you're exempt, and that's pretty well it. Everyone else is required by New York State schools and, some schools and charitable organizations must go register with the AG and submit forms every year. And finally, you must be pre-qualified. That's a weird term, and we'll get into that more later, but figure that it's going to take you a couple of weeks to pre-qualify. So when I say get started now, I mean get started now, please. Now, what's your shopping cart like? What can you buy? The 2 grants, give you choices that are very similar with some key differences. First of all, you can get lighting, door hardening, locking, alarm systems, surveillance systems, access control, fencing. Basically, as any nonprofit, you want to make sure that you have a strong perimeter, that people cannot easily, like the burglars got into the Buddhist temple. You don't want people to be able to walk in easily, walk in without some sort of challenge. Pastor Gill mentioned the Lakewood Church. The guards did not challenge the shooter, and the son of the shooter was wearing a backpack, and the assumption is that the guns were in the backpack and no one checked the backpack, even though the church website says that all bags are subject to search. So again, you want to make sure that you have a system to keep allow authorized people in and unauthorized people out. So you want interior door hardening, locking mechanisms. When we're talking about active threats, we're talking about lockdown systems, panic buttons, and the state allows all kinds of PA systems. And those are very, very important. If there's an emergency, how do you direct everyone in the building about what to do? That is, very available in the state. The federal government doesn't allow that so easily. So the state stepped up, and thank you, Debbie, because that was a gap that the state filled. Now, it also includes security training and cybersecurity. And everyone knows how important cyber is these days. Now, the state both grants will allow for cybersecurity. The state is really built for cybersecurity. So if you're thinking about cybersecurity, think about using part of your 200,000 in the state grant. That allows for planning, making plans, hiring consultants to help you make plans, equipment, software packages, including firewalls, antivirus applications, malware protection, servers, encryption software, intrusion detection systems. That means people intruding into your network, hardware components that provide protection against cyber threats, like firewalls. It is training. The entire JCRC staff, for example, went through a simulation that taught them how to detect phishing. It was a software package that we bought, and every person should go through that, because the cyber thieves are getting more and more sophisticated, and we're hearing of more instances of ransomware and other kinds of cyber incidents. And it also pays for exercises. What can't you do? Well, you can't ask the city and state to each pay for upgrading your doors or any other project. So if you've done a project on one kind of project and paid for it through the state grant, don't ask for it in the federal grant, and vice versa. Anticipated security costs for facilities not yet built or existing. In other words, I get calls every year. We're moving, we're in the process of finishing up a building, but we're not occupying it yet. That's a no-no. It has to be the facility that you're using at the time of the application. The federal government allows for security guard contractors. You can't, a church, a synagogue, a temple can't hire the security guards themselves under the federal grant, because that might be a church-state issue. So you have to use a contractor. And there's a couple of other things you can't have. You can't bill for reimbursement of pre-award costs like a grant writer. And, it won't pay for construction. But if anyone has a question ongoing, I'll be glad to try to answer it. Okay, so remember, I keep saying, what should I do tomorrow? And that might be even putting it off too much. You should get started now. And we'll talk about each of these 5 steps. First of all, get an assessment. Second, get pre-qualified. Third, collect and catalog information about past incidents in vandalism, hate mail, swatting, etc. 4, take a picture. The grant, New York State grant, requires color ground level photo of the front facade of each facility. Now, what you have to understand about these grants and getting any state money, and many houses of worship are not used to getting government money. Government is very picky. So they tell you what to do and they expect you to do it. If you don't do it, then you're not going to get the money. So if you forget to have a picture and submit it by May 17th, then you will be disqualified. They won't even look at your grant, the grant application. You have to go and you have to do everything and jump through every hoop they require. So take a picture early so you're not panicking on the, on May 17th. And for the federal grant, you have to get a unique entity identifier. That's a number. That takes about 2 hours if you do it right. You have to follow this link to do it. It's very simple, but there are lots and lots of places online that try to lure you in and say, we'll get your SAMS number or UEI number. And they'll charge you for it. They'll charge you hundreds of dollars. You do not need to do that. Don't, just follow this link. It's free. Okay, now, I said get an assessment. Where can you do that? We advise that you get a professional. There are lots and lots of vendors out there who say, oh, I'll give you an assessment. And, if they sell video surveillance, CCTV equipment, you'd be surprised. They miraculously decide that you need lots and lots of CCTV equipment. You want someone who's independent. NYPD gives a crime prevention survey. That is okay. Jewish organizations can come to CSI. And, we give a very extensive survey, but we just don't have the capacity to do everything. The DHS does give do security assessments. Here's a email to send to request. Again, if you don't request any of these early, people might say, no, we have no more capacity. We can't deliver on time. There are also self-assessment tools. CISA has an excellent one for both houses of worship and schools. New Jersey has one. New York has one, which, is on the website. SCAN has one. And this is a really good, I recommend this Potential Indicators, Common Vulnerabilities. I recommend this this publication because it will tell you, everyone comes to me and says, where can I get a grant for cameras? Cameras aren't the first thing that you should be thinking about. But what should you be thinking about? Go to something like Potential Indicators, and that will start the thought process. Go to someone who knows houses of worship, and they will tell you what you really need. For example, the self-assessment from the feds, and this is both an assessment tool and a teaching tool. Are the doors to the facility closed and locked during services to prevent unauthorized access and limit the possibility of an intruder. Well, I mentioned Lakewood. The doors were not locked, but there were guards there. There were screeners. They can be volunteers. They can be guards. They can be in New York City. NYPD has a paid detail, and which allows you to hire officers in uniform with radios, when they're off duty. And that's a whole system that, provides an excellent deterrent. But, a very low, it's rated very low if almost everything is unlocked. It's low if they're usually unlocked. If you see it, and what's very high, they're locked when not occupied. In other words, you don't want a door that's open and an area that's open and unlocked all during the week if you're using it on Saturday or Sunday, because that, people can wander in there and wander around. So you want to create what this is implying is you want a system that everything is locked. Doors are unlocked for a period of time before and after worship services, but they're attended during services so that anyone entering after the start time will be recognized by ushers, screeners, whatever you said, whatever you decide. Administrative areas are locked and when not occupied. Cash room is always locked. A fellowship hall meeting room is locked when not in use. Okay, so that's one thing that you should know. The other thing that you should know is if you're going to ask for a piece of equipment, any of that shopping cart that I mentioned before, you have to show a vulnerability on your assessment. So if you want to, for example, get new doors because your doors, if you blow on them hard enough, they'll fall in. Or you jiggle your door a little bit and it opens. If you want to replace your doors, you have to have something in the assessment that your doors are inadequate. Now, the terrible burden of pre-qualifying. Excuse me, I'm getting over COVID, so I cough every once in a while. Now, the state, and excuse me, Debbie, for making an aside that even though they had a functional system that people basically could use, they decided to change their system. So if your organization was pre-qualified in the system that was called Great Grants Gateway on December 15th of last year, your pre-qualification was moved to the SFS system, which is the new, register in SFS. If you were pre-qualified, you received a letter in December and telling you how to sign in. Now, even if you're pre-qualified today, I just looked at I looked at an organization that was pre-qualified today, but their pre-qualification expired on May 8th, which means if they submit an application on May 9th, they're not pre-qualified. And remember what I said about hoops and requirements? If you're not pre-qualified for either grant, they won't look at your grant. You will just, your whole application is set aside and not acted on. So certain documents expire annually and you have to, so I told this organization. Yeah, you have until May 8th, but why don't you right now upload fresh financial documents? And the only thing that a house of worship would have to upload is a current budget. In other words, if you use QuickBooks, get a profit and loss report. And that is acceptable as long as you have a member of the board write a letter on church stationery, your organizational stationery, that that this report is reviewed by the board and accurately reflects the financial status of the congregation. So that's if you're already pre-qualified. If you're not pre-qualified, you have to start over. And here it says just to it'll take you a couple days to do the registration document. They reserve 5 to 10 business days from the receipt of complete materials to process a registration request. Due to the length of time, this process can drag on for weeks. So if you start in May to do this, you're not going to be pre-qualified, so you might as well not do the rest of it. Start now, get pre-qualified. That's fine. If you hit a rough patch, just go to the help desk and they will get you through it, but they don't necessarily answer the phone immediately. The most efficient way I found is to reach them by email, say, call me back at, here's my cell number, and that works. Now, SFS will require documents, so you may not know where your documents are. Your certificate of incorporation. If you're doing business as something else, you need that certificate. An IRS determination letter that you need, except if you're I'll go into that in a second. SHAR 500 or 410, that's really doesn't really exist anymore. You just go to the registration page here. You need board of directors profile. That generally, Bob Kaplan, his title at JCRC, and is enough, just 2 lines. But you need they want to know the names of your boards of directors, senior leadership resumes. So Pastor Gil Monroe's, his executive director in the mayor's office, and pastor of X church. That's possibly where he was ordained. Corporate bylaws and an organization chart. Again, this takes time, so get started now. Okay, I mentioned about religious corporations. You go to the Charities Bureau and you essentially follow the directions there. It is really simple. You fill out your certain types of educational institutions are exempt. Organizations for religious purposes are exempt. You simply fill out your name's organization's name and address, a contact person and email for the contact person, a phone number here, and then it gives you the option, register as exempt organization, and it will give you a few boxes to click and you're done. It's not onerous. Now, required financial documents. remember I said that the only thing that a house of worship needs is are these letters on corporate organizational letterhead stating that your organization is a religious corporation and automatically exempt, or you're not required to file a 990. Or religious organizations may provide their most recent internal financial report reviewed by the board, along with a letter on organizational letterhead explaining that the document has been reviewed by the board. That's pretty straightforward. Again, you do this, you'll get, you'll do not pass go, you'll get your $200, and you'll be on your way. Now, I've said this, I keep saying it, if you're not pre-qualified, your grant application, neither grant application will be considered. Pre-qualification is good for both. You don't have to do this twice. So, and if you need help with SFS, as I mentioned, you go to their help desk. Okay. So now, what I said is collect information. Now, given what's happening in the world today, every institution should operate in a state of heightened vigilance. I kind of, DHS just put this out last week, this recognized signs of terrorism-related suspicious activity. This is also good for hate crimes, expressed or implied threats. People are loitering in front of your building, watching. That's not a good sign. If that happens, again, if you see something, say something. People are taking photographs of your building. Now, if you're a major landmark, that's one thing. But are people taking the right pictures? Are they taking pictures of all your doors? That's not a good sign. Theft, loss, diversion. Well, if the uniforms of your custodial staff disappeared, that's, that's something you should be aware of, and it should up your the hairs on the back of your neck should stand up, because that's something that someone may use to gain access to your building. Or testing or probing of security, that includes cybersecurity. So if you have an intrusion alarm and something's happening, I know that I used to look at JCRC's website all the time, and there were, essentially, over 100 people a week sent probes into the system trying to infect the system. So that's, these are the kind of things that you should be aware of. Now, you want to collect examples of threats to your facility or similar facilities. And, this is a notification from the Los Angeles Joint Intelligence Center. But if you have in-person phone, email, snail mail, social media threats, intimidations, or expressions of hate, or if you've had a theft, graffiti, or other act of vandalism, active shooter active threat with sharp-edged weapons, arson or explosives, a cyber attack or vehicle ramming, all of these kinds of things, if you know of, if you've experienced, or if a similar organization to you has experienced, these are very important to collect and have ready, because it's going to go into your application. This bulletin also talks about a threat against the church in Haymarket, Virginia, a Presbyterian church in Laguna Woods, a shooting, a conspiracy to do a mass shooting and bombing at a Shia mosque in Chicago area, and a mass shooting at the Woodland Muslim and Islamic Center in Woodland, California. That's these are examples. What has not been well publicized yet is that the Lakewood shooter, and I usually don't like to mention people's names, posted on the Telegram channel under the screen name Die Israel, repeatedly expressed hatred for Jews in Israel. On January 8th, she wrote "Death to Jews in America." We don't know why she went to the Lakewood church, but she did. Okay. Start to prepare your application now. For the New York application, here's the link. Click here and it'll take you to the right page. Review and begin work on there's application questions that you're going to have to answer. And again, this is so bizarre, and we'll go through this later in a deep dive, but they require the answers to these questions in an online app, and they require that you attach to the online app the same questions in a Word document in 11-point type. No Word document, no grant. And, the really good thing last year, and the governor, by combining the 2 years of grants together, I anticipate the same will be true this year. But last year, everyone who submitted a complete application to New York State ended up getting a grant. The federal grant, only 46% of the applicants won grants. So, the state grant, you have a pretty good chance of winning. Again, nothing officially is out from the Nonprofit Security Grant Program, but I have the application form, which is called an investment justification. God forbid they call it an application form. They have to be, fancy schmancy. And I have our tips on how to get through, how to complete the application. By the way, the questions on the state and the federal questions are very similar in nature. So, what we advise everyone to do is download the investment justification now and start working on it. But you can cut and paste the applications into the 2024 template once it gets out. But understand, if you submit a 2023 template, it's thrown out, you won't get a grant. So, this is very annoying, because you can do a lot of things right, but you do one thing wrong and you're out of luck. Now, the official application information is available on the DCJS grant page. DCJS also has a self-assessment. So you can, just click to this page. And for the federal grant, it's at DHSCS grant page. And here's an address where you can address questions to them. And we ask you to go to the security landing page. We're going to be constantly putting more information up. And this presentation has been uploaded, and you can get information at the DHSES. You should know that excuse me. We found DHSES is more responsive. They handle the federal grant. The state grant is, kind of, they put the information out and you're pretty much on your own. If you have questions, there's a way to ask the questions. But, that's the story. And speaking of questions, now it's time for me to answer your questions. So, it's a lot of information, and we hope we were helpful.
Thank you so much, David. We have 4 questions that I'm going to ask you right now,
It's
so
too
you
early
can
for
respond to.
questions.
The first one is somebody wondering how they can get a training on active shooters.
Either go to the protective the email address for DHS, Protective Security Advisors, they will do a training. We've done a couple of trainings for NIDUS. We're going to do another one in May. NYPD does active shooter training, so be in touch with your local precinct. And those are those are all possible, and I'll try to
Great, thank you.
back up and
Find the slide with it. Great. So just clarifying, it has to be capital and not operating expenses.
Correct.
The asks.
Yeah.
So no
Okay.
security guards?
Yes and no. Federal grant allows for security guards. Again, these grants are supposed to supplement, not supplant, current budget. So if you currently have security guards, let's say that you have one unarmed guard during the week and 2 unarmed guards during services, then your assessment should show, and this would be for the federal grant, that you want to upgrade that. You want 1 armed guard a week, during the week, during the times the house of worship is open. And, going from unarmed to armed is a justification. And, you have to find a vulnerability. And the vulnerability is unarmed guards do not have sufficient tools to, and we'll get into this later in our deep dive, but unarmed guards don't have sufficient resources to interdict a hostile intruder. And that finding leads to the necessity for armed guards. Of course,
Thanks.
then I'm not getting into the internal debates within congregations, armed or unarmed. But, I'm just talking about the security issue.
Great, thank you. So we have another question saying, if a house of worship needs help applying for the grant, but they don't have the manpower or resources, and the state doesn't pay for grant writers, is there a way they can pay for a consultant or something of that sort? Is that true for the state and or the federal?
I am not aware of any resources. And, we're going to try to do, we're going to do additional webinars that include deep dives, but, there aren't any floating grant writers available that I'm aware of.
Is this grant available for smaller houses of worship, like those who are renting spaces?
It doesn't matter if you rent or own. The only requirement is if you're renting, you have to have the permission of the owner to do the upgrade. I just want to caution people. This is not a trivial grant. This takes a lot of work, and we're aware that there are some organizations that just don't have the capacity to really do the to do this. And by the way, getting the money is the easier part. Spending it and going through the hoops that the state requires is also, very involved. CSI, tries to step in the Jewish community, and we have lots of other communities calling us saying, how do we do this? And we try to answer them.
Great. Thank you so much, David. So as David mentioned, we are planning 2 deep dives. So this will really help you if you don't have the resources to get a consultant or hire a grant writer. We will be letting you know in our follow-up email with the recording of this session and links to all the documentation that David's done on the CSI website. We will be letting you know of these extra 2 dates. They're going to be soon. One is a deep dive, a much closer look at how do you apply for the grant for the state, and the second one will be for the federal. Thank you so much, David. And I am going to flip it back to Rabbi Bob.
Thank you again. Thank you, David. That was a tremendous amount of information, and thank God we can turn to the resources of CSI. I know that Cynthia's already posted in the chat how you can get your presentation. I believe, Cynthia, that the recording will be available of this as well?
Yes, it will.
Okay, so you'll be able to listen to David in case you didn't catch quite everything, because his mind is so full of so many pieces of information, and we're really looking forward to the next deep dives that will give us a deeper understanding of exactly how people can make sure that they're part of the process and ensure that they can avail themselves of the funding that's available for them. As we close this out, I'd like to turn to our other partner, the CSS, Richard Priam, who's the CEO of CSS, to give some greetings and some insight into the work that CSS does. And that is another piece that we're going to be doing again in the future. We've done this in the past, is understanding the kind of work on a weekly basis that organizations like CSS are doing and how they provide safety. Again, our ultimate goal is safety for all those who walk into a house of worship, so their hearts and their minds and their souls can be turned to our common creator rather than the multiple fears and anxieties that plague the world that we live in today. So without further ado, Richard Priam.
Thank you, Rabbi. And now I'll keep my remarks short and to the point, also because there's going to be a webinar more dedicated to what we do at CSS, but a few words about the organization. We're a 501c3, and what we do is training members of the Jewish community to work as ushers, greeters, and volunteer security at Jewish institutions and events. And if you look back at the presentation we just received from from David, it takes care of one of the pillars of having security at your institution, what we like to call the 3 Ps, right? So the first P of security is physical or technological, the target hardening. And I think the grant is an instrumental opportunity to get some of that material, some of those physical barriers, some of those technological upgrades at your institution. As David pointed out, the grant is covering more and more. So there's other aspects that can be covered as well, but that's one of the things you should think about when you think about securing your house of worship, is what kind of physical, technological means can you build to harden the target. The second is procedures. You can have a reinforced door, but do you have a system in place that somebody is making sure that they are locked at the end of the day, someone checks in the morning, that there's no signs of forced entry. So when you think about procedures, there are a lot of things that you can build, and there are best practices, and we can maybe dedicate one of the sessions in the future about some sort of low-hanging fruit when it comes to security procedures, but it's something that is not it's not expensive, but it's hugely effective, because just like the majority of cyber breaches is because of human errors, right? Most security breaches are also because someone didn't follow a procedure or didn't take advantage of some of the means that are in place. And then the last P is the people. And that's really where we come in at CSS, is training members of your congregation, have situational awareness, be aware, as David mentioned, but also what are some additional steps that they can do to help with access control, to help with perimeter safety, to think about kind of emergency scenarios and how they could respond to that. And one of the things that we'll do in subsequent sessions is, as part of this council, is us delivering a introductory training about what we did, how we train members of the Jewish community to serve as ushers and greeters at their institutions. And I think you might find that useful as well. And at the end of that session, we'll also share some resources that you can take with you and bring to your own community. So I'm glad we have this council back on the rails, and that this first meeting took place. And I think what David presented was really, really valuable, not just for you, but also for us, other organizations operating in the Jewish communal space. And I look forward to working with all of you and bringing whatever knowledge we have that is useful to you. And not only in these sessions, but if you have any questions about what we do and how we could be helpful to you, reach out to Rabbi Kaplan, and we'll do everything we can to be supportive.
Thank you so much, Richard. And I want to thank David. I want to thank Cynthia. I want to thank behind the scenes Karen Lafferty, who made all the technical operations work this morning. And I certainly want to thank our other partners, CSI and the God Squad, the 67 Precinct Clergy Council. Cynthia will be in touch with all of you attending and others. You can certainly invite others to the deep dives that will be happening in the near future. Again, I want to echo what Richard said. I'm glad that we're back in our meetings. Unfortunately, we were supposed to have a meeting in the fall. However, the Jewish community, because of the events on October 7th, sort of caught our attention a little bit more than we would have liked to. So I really want to, again, thank everyone. And I want to thank all of you who participated and our partners in making sure that we live in a safer society, but we can only be safe by really guarding with each other and seeing each other as sharing the responsibility of ensuring that all are safe. Thank you very much and have a great day.